Good evening, everybody. Welcome to PatFacts. Patrick here, Pat Running Back Personal Fitness. Tonight we're talking about perseverance. Very important topic, very important skill to have and to develop because we need it right now. We're going to share two examples that I came across over the past few months of perseverance based on two Olympic athletes. They had to persevere just to get to the Olympics and kind of above and beyond what normally an athlete would have to persevere. It is part of it where they'd have to persevere and qualify, but these two in particular had to really go above and beyond that perseverance tag and that lifestyle just to get to Japan, to the Olympics. And then obviously perseverance is a big part of that experience, being at the Olympics and trying to endure going against the world's best. So I'm going to share those two examples with you. I'm going to share a little bit of my perseverance, some examples I have. And I want to hear from you guys. Let me know, how do you persevere, whether it's now during the pandemic, because we all have persevered. It's been 17, 18 months. I'm not even sure anymore. Through this pandemic, we've all had to persevere. We've all had to learn about ourselves and do some different things. So it can be during the pandemic. It could be from the past. Let's hear from each other. Let's share with each other, whether you're here with us live or if you're watching on the recording. If you are, thank you for checking out the recording and supporting us. But let's hear from you. How did you persevere? What are some examples of when you've had to persevere before? So we're going to go through the first. For the two examples are two female Olympic athletes, Georgia Ellenwood and Mandy Bujold. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I'm familiar with them because they're both affiliated with, hey Bonnie, good evening. They're both affiliated with Under Armour. So I'm a big fan of Under Armour. And so I follow a lot of the athletes that are sponsored and supported by them. So that's how I have seen these stories. And I'm not even sure that if I hadn't been following them per se, if I would have even heard the story. So hopefully some of this will come out. I know with Mandy, some of her story has come out and she's been able to make some appearances and spread the word on it, which is great. But hopefully more of that comes as well. But that's, again, how I've heard of the two of them. I'll start with Georgia. She's a heptathlete, so the 7 events over a couple of days. And what her struggle was, how she had to persevere. Again, she was affected by COVID, by the pandemic. Typically, to qualify for the Olympics, you have to do so many meets and accumulate points and be in a certain standing to qualify to go to the Olympic Games. But because of the COVID restrictions, specifically these last few months before we reopened, when we went back into our lockdown, she was really restricted and had trouble getting away, because if she went away to a tournament or to a meet to compete, when she came back, she'd have to quarantine in the hotel for 3 days, which cost a lot of money, and quarantine and do all the testing and things that had to be done. And it really put a struggle on how whether or not she would qualify for the Olympics, because she wasn't able to get to all the tournaments she would want to and accumulate those points or move up in the standings, and even to test herself against those other athletes, those competitors, to know what the field is like and what you have to deal with. And even just losing the camaraderie, because if you watch the Olympics and some of those events, even though they're individual events, a lot of those athletes, maybe more so in regular times, compete against each other. They do the World Cup, or they do a World Championships, or they do a tour, or they're on all these different meets together. So they build a community within themselves. Even though they're competitors, they're all a community as well. And that was really cool to see, kind of a sidebar from what we're talking about, but it was kind of neat to see that. So she would miss that as well, not seeing her competitors / friends that she's gotten to know over the years. So she really had to make a decision of how she was going to train and should she try for the Olympics. And keep in mind, these were the 2020 Olympics. They were delayed a year because of the COVID outbreaks and what was going on. So that alone was perseverance for all these athletes. Because if you look at long-term training, ideally, they're training and practicing to peak at the Olympics. They want to go through the ebbs and flows, have things nailed down so that at the Olympics, they can perform their best. So they had to kind of schedule and retrain and really restructure their training systems to extend one more year to go through that system again. So that alone was perseverance. But then again, Georgia's example, she had to deal with not being able to get to meets as much as she wanted to. And what she had to do towards the end, she went over to decide, okay, I'm going to go to Austria to this meet. She went to the meet. She did fairly decent. And she decided, you know what, I'm going to stay in Europe. Instead of coming home to Canada, she moved back to Canada when COVID started. She's, I believe, in the US. She went to school there, competed there in NCAAs in heptathlon. She came back to Toronto to be home during the pandemic. But again, restrictions were there. She couldn't even train, really. It was hard to get into training grounds because gyms were closed, training grounds were closed. It was really just up until she decided to go to Austria and compete where she was able to get some training in. So she was very limited in what she could do. Some of her own things, some working out, that type of thing, but to actually do some of the events and get some coaching and some feedback, and even just to get kind of moving through those events. Because lifting weights and training is still different than throwing a javelin or running hurdles. You really need to do those to be able to fine tune things and keep up with them. So she was limited by that as well. No training facilities or access to them because of the COVID. And then she decided she was going to go to Austria for a meet. She went to Austria, had the meet, and then decided, you know what, as much as I want to be home with my family and to be back in Ontario, I'm going to stay in Europe. She made that decision to stay in Europe. She found ways to train. She was by herself. No family members, nothing like that with her. It was just her. She found ways to train. She found ways to endure, to persevere. She found ways to just kind of get by. And she went to another meet, I believe it was in Germany, but a second meet, and went to that meet and actually obtained her personal best in the heptathlon, which ultimately sealed the deal for her to qualify for Tokyo, for the Olympics. So again, a totally different route than she had seen in her head or envisioned. Again, she planned to either be here in Canada or potentially in the US with her coaches, with her teams, her team of support to help her train and get ready, and had to make these ultimate sacrifices and decisions to put herself in that opportunity that she wanted to do to compete at that Olympic level. So it was really interesting to see her story kind of unfold, and just following her on social media. And I went back today to kind of go through some of that just to see it again, just to make those decisions. She's just pretty fresh out of college, university, maybe just a year or two, I believe. So again, still quite young to make those choices and to have to really kind of grow up on the spot and make sure that you're doing the right thing. So for her, it was leaving everybody kind of at home and getting through that meet and that time in Europe by herself. And again, different places in Europe and where she was. Language barriers could be a factor. For her, probably supporting herself is a factor, because you're not really working in a foreign country. So ideally her sponsors and things are able to help her as an Olympic athlete or Canadian athlete. But again, it's a lot to deal with on top of just trying to qualify and perform well at the Olympics. So that's my first example, was Georgia. She made it at the Olympics. She did qualify, that personal best overall. And then she did compete. She obtained a personal best in the high jump. She a personal best at the Olympic level as well. And then she had to persevere further at the end. I believe she was in 15th or 18th going into the last event, which was I think it was the 400 meters. And leading up to the run, she posted later, she felt not well. It was very humid, kind of like it is here in Ontario, if not worse there in Tokyo during their competitions. So again, 7 events over 2 days, trying to perform at your max level that many times is a very grueling event. And she said going into the last event, she didn't feel well. She was nauseous. She was dizzy. She wasn't sure if it was heat stroke, if it was exhaustion, if it was just underfed, overtired, probably a combination of a bunch of things. But she said she was going to do whatever she could to finish that last event and complete the heptathlon, because that's what she was there to do. So again, fighting all those conditions, she was there. She ran the race. She crossed the finish line, and then kind of made her way to the ground, and then actually had to have medical assistance off the track. I believe she spent an evening in the hospital on some IV, and that was coincidentally her birthday. So she spent her birthday finishing the heptathlon, representing Canada so amazingly, and then spent the evening in the hospital recovering. So again, sometimes we hear these stories through the media outlets because they like that backstory of the athlete before you watch them compete, so you can get emotionally invested. But I didn't hear a lot of this stuff other than, again, following her on social media. So I just want to share that example of that perseverance and making those choices. We talked before about maybe changing your plan, changing your systems. As long as things are calculated, sometimes we need to change. We need to modify or adjust what it is that we're doing. And that's okay. We don't want to change just for change's sake. And we don't want to change before we really try things to see what's going to work and what doesn't. But if it's not working, then again, maybe it's the way we need to modify and change things. For her, staying in Toronto, coming back to Toronto, isolating, spending that money, and then maybe having points or having to get somewhere else didn't make sense for her. It made more sense to make that decision to stay over there. And it paid off in the end. Personal best. She was so excited when she finished that competition and then got the official word that she qualified for Tokyo. It was so cool to almost live vicariously through her, feeling like we're connected almost. I've never met her in person, hopefully soon, one day. But I'd like to have her here and bring her on as a podcast guest down the road. But it was so cool to kind of be there and see what she went through. So that's my first example of perseverance that I wanted to share from that Olympic standpoint. Again, getting out of your comfort zone, doing things you're not maybe used to doing, things maybe you have a plan to do. We try to plan things as much as we can, but conditions are gonna happen. Things are gonna come up. Things we can't always control, that we talked about. So we need to be able to adapt to those as best we can. She was able to stay clear-headed, had a plan in place, made some modifications, thought about it, decided this is my best plan of action, and in the end it turned out to be. So that's sort of the example we wanted to share there. The second example I wanted to share, again, I mentioned Mandy Bujol. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. I'll learn that. And again, I want to have Mandy on as well. Mandy's a boxer for Team Canada. She had a different struggle to go through because, again, I believe because of the pandemic and certain matches and things being postponed, the boxing federations and the IOC, so the International Olympic Committee, decided to change how they structured qualifications for boxing. And they based it on events attended and I think points based on your results, if I remember correctly. And Mandy had the and hey, Terry Fox, Run Barry, good evening, welcome. Mandy wasn't able to make those competitions because she had a baby. She was on maternity leave. She wasn't able to get to those meets that the federations decided, let's count these as ways to seed it. So she kind of went forward to the IOC and different boxing federations that were kind of looking over these events and tried to get this changed and say, I was home with my baby. The Olympics were delayed a year. It was a lot of things out of my control. I was on maternity leave. I should still have an opportunity to qualify for the games. And she wrote a letter and actually was turned down. It was denied at first, her request. So she actually took legal action against the IOC. And so being a new mom, trying to train for the Olympics and qualify for them in boxing. So really, they're all demanding sports, but boxing is kind of ridiculous what you need to do. And trying to fight legal battles to make sure you can get there is all she had to deal with to get ready for the Olympics. So, and again, in addition to trying to raise money to get to Tokyo and be supportive and be able to train and do these things, she's trying to absorb legal fees and everything as well. And unfortunately had a great support system around her and some fans and supporters who helped her take care of things. But she eventually got the ruling overturned and was able to find an alternate way to qualify for Tokyo, got to Tokyo, and again, did an amazing job representing Canada, like all of our athletes did. But kind of a strange way to have to get there, to go through all these things. Again, you think I have to go through training, I have to maybe go through injuries and setbacks, I have to go through maybe sickness or illness if things come up. But you don't think, I'm a new parent, so that's going to prevent me from getting to the Olympics and fulfilling my dream. It's a really weird and seems to be, to me, almost an archaic kind of ruling. And I don't know all the ins and outs of their structure and their the kind of rules and things that they have in place. But it seems, since they wouldn't allow her to qualify, that either it was some kind of weird case because of the pandemic and the changes made, but it still seems like it should have been a no-brainer that you were home with your child. Yes, and we've changed the rules because of other things going on that you can't control. Yes, you should have that opportunity. And for them to say no was really surprising, considering the IOC is supposed to be about inclusion and sport for all, and showcasing athleticism and the athletes and the people that are behind the games. It really surprised me that she had to go through all these hoops again just to qualify, just to get to Tokyo. Let alone all her training and the regiments that she has to go through. They live a very structured and really reserved, kind of isolated life sometimes. And so that alone is they have to persevere through, let alone, again, a legal battle against the Olympic Committee to be able to qualify for your sport. It was really crazy to hear some of these Olympians and what they had to go through, again, just to try to qualify, let alone to qualify for those Olympics. So again, just a couple of examples of maybe when things are tough, you're having a rough go of things and things aren't going your way and you're thinking maybe throwing in the towel. Just think back to those two examples and what those two ladies had to go through, again, just to try to qualify for the Olympics, let alone dealing with the year that it was delayed, dealing with the training implications, again, risk of injury, recovery, all that sort of thing, trying to keep things on such a tight schedule that you can perform at that optimal level when you get to the Olympics. And then you have to fit in travel or legal battles or different things. There's a lot to kind of go through and a lot that we don't see or hear of. So again, think back to those two examples and maybe it'll help you kind of put things in perspective and think, you know what, I can deal with what's going on right now. I can deal with this little setback because I'm not dealing with all this stuff that they had to deal with just to fulfill their dream. I can fulfill my dream and my goal by sticking to my course, by going through, Georgia had to change her plan. Maybe I need to change my plan a little bit. Maybe I need to work a little differently at what I'm doing. Maybe I need to change my plan of attack to get myself forward. So again, looking at examples, look around your communities, look at athletes you admire or encourage or like to cheer on. Look into some of their examples, look into what they've gone through. And then there's stories in lots of sports, and a lot of athletes have to go through and persevere a lot to get to the level they want to be at. So look at that for examples and for inspiration and for some of that, just that role modeling that we can see. You know what, they put their head down, they worked through it, they're able to deal with everything they had going on. So if they can go through that and get to that level, then I should be able to handle what it is I've got going on and be able to make it through here. So, and one other example I'm just thinking of now, a coach of the women's softball team, Mark Smith. His wife was my professor at Acadia, Go Axman, and she mentioned that in order for him to train the team and be with the team and get to Tokyo, he was away from home for 130 days. 130 days he was away from his home and family to be away, to be with the team, probably the same thing, tournaments and different play-ins, to make sure they're seated high enough to qualify or have a high enough ranking to qualify for the Olympics. So he was away from his family for 130 days. So again, he sacrificed, they sacrificed as well. So, and Georgia's example, being away from home, staying in Europe, she was away from her family. Again, with Mandy, she had to leave her daughter to go and get to Tokyo because and be away from her during the events and things like that, and have that separation from after being with her for so long. Again, there's lots of things to endure. So keep in mind, everyone goes through these roadblocks, these obstacles that are thrown in our way. Some, again, with things we can control, some things we can't control. It's all about how we respond to those events and how we persevere through those that are going to keep us going. So try to build on your perseverance. Try not to let try not to let little things bother you and get in your way quite so much. Remember, we choose how we respond to the things that happen to us. So try to look at things from a positive mindset, from an open mind, or at least take some time to acknowledge them. If it's something that really frustrates you or is really annoying, take some time to acknowledge that, be in that place, but then try to let it go. Don't hang on to it too much. That helps you refocus and get back on track and get back on working towards that goal and maybe finding that new way to attack it. If you come at it from that frustrated, irritated mindset, you're not going to make good decisions. And you're probably more likely to say, never mind, and quit and get away. That negative self-talk is going to come back in. But if you can, again, maybe give yourself a bit of time to be in that space, and then work on coming out of it, come at things with an open perspective, a positive mindset, then you'll make better choices, better decisions. You'll be more open-minded. You'll be more of a clear thinker, so you can really make the plans you need to make to help you get forward and back on track and working towards that goal. So again, perseverance. I want you to try to build that muscle, build that skill, because that's what it is. We have to practice it and work through it. And again, think back to those times when you had to persevere and reflect on those. Those experiences are going to show you what you can do. Again, just think of what you've done these past 17, 18 months, dealing with a pandemic and lockdowns and curfews and reopens and reclosing and shutdowns and reopens again, and vaccines and masks and all this and that. We've persevered through that these past few months, past year and a half or more. Good, kudos to you. You've done it. That's, if nothing else, that's your example. Congratulate yourself. Again, celebrate these wins that we have along the way. Recognize everything you're doing right now and the effort that you're putting into things, because it pays off. You're building that skill, that perseverance muscle, so when other roadblocks come up in your way, and they will, you can persevere through them. You can work through them because you think, you know what? I made it through a pandemic. If I can get through a pandemic and still be on track and working towards my goals, or even maybe getting better than I was before the pandemic, maybe taking leaps and bounds, then I can definitely handle this roadblock that's in front of me. You've heard me talk about Afghanistan and how it wasn't a roadblock, but I use that experience to help me now to better handle some of the lockdowns and isolations and restrictions that came with that. You do the same thing with this. You've persevered through a pandemic. Use that experience to take you forward. Think back to those times you persevered in the past and use that to maybe help you persevere through this if you're having trouble. It's been a long haul. And unfortunately, in Ontario and Canada, it doesn't seem like we're out of the woods yet. So we've got to persevere some more. We've got to keep working through this. So again, take some time. Think back to those times when you're really up against the wall, when you're really struggling. How did you persevere? What did you do to get through that? How did you feel after you made it through? And then bring that back into today and use that to help you keep on grinding and keep on moving forward and keep on taking those little steps toward those big goals, like our friend Blake likes to say. So again, that's it for tonight, gangs. Thanks so much for being here. Again, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. How did you persevere? How have you persevered before? Share some examples with us, or even share some things you do to help you persevere. If you don't want to share maybe the exact obstacles you had to overcome or something, that's fine. But maybe share some things you do to help you persevere, to deal with some of those big roadblocks that maybe get thrown your way from time to time. Again, join us next week, 6 p.m. Eastern. We're back for PatFacts again. And also, I opened this up to Twitch yesterday, the little pop-up stream there. Let's hear from you if there's certain topics you'd like to cover on PatFacts, future episodes. Let me know. Again, send a comment, send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you. I want, again, us to be a community. We have great interaction here where we share with each other and help each other get better. And if there's different topics and conversations that we'd like to have, then definitely let us know in the comments or in a DM. And hey, Ryan, welcome, buddy. Good to see you. And we can definitely add that on as we're going forward. So let me know in the comments, again, how you persevere or what things you do to help you persevere. And if there's anything you'd like discussed here on PatFacts, let me know. And we can definitely try to work that out as we go forward. So stay tuned. We're going to have online fitness coaching info coming very soon. Powering Back virtual fitness coming back very soon. Again, different structure and layout than before, but coming back very soon. So stay tuned for details on those. Stay safe, everyone. Again, it seems like we're not out of the woods yet. Rumor. Yes, Terry Fox run. Yes, I was going to reach out to you guys actually, for sure. And it talks Terry Fox run. I've actually, since we brought it up, I've actually registered my team again. This is the 4th year we're putting a team in the Terry Fox run, the Barrie Terry Fox run virtual this year. So you can join in from anywhere. So if you search Terry Fox, terryfox.org/POYB fit. That's our page. You can join us there. You can join the team. Help us raise some great money for for cancer research. We raised over $1,500 last year with our team. So we're putting the team back in again, virtual run. So you can run from anywhere, your own space. You can have that. So yes, we will be talking about the Terry Fox run for sure. I was actually going to reach out to you guys and try to set something up again where we can do that. So that'll be, and actually I had the Edmonton Terry Fox channel on here a few weeks ago. So I want to try to coordinate something with both of you, maybe to have a little some kind of chat or interaction where we can figure something out. So yes, thank you for that reminder. The team's up. You can register again, terryfox.org/POYBFit, like pat on your back fitness. You can join our team or sponsor our team and support that great cause of the Terry Fox Foundation and cancer research. And we want to try, like Terry, want to put our best foot forward and do the best we can. Terry Fox, an excellent example of perseverance. If you need any more inspiration, look at Terry Fox. Check out I haven't seen it yet, but there was a show on CBC about him on Monday. Want to check it out on CBC Gem. You can stream it there. Talk about perseverance. Just look at Terry Fox, what he had to do and deal with as far as learning to walk and move and then run and then train for his marathon of hope. We hear the marathon of hope, which is perseverance enough, but the steps he had to take to get ready for that once he had his prosthetic leg, there's so much he had to persevere and deal with and endure. Another great example of perseverance. So again, look around for these examples of people in your community, in your country, role models you have, athletes you admire, people you admire that do great things, and just learn more about them. You'll see probably some of their examples of how they had to persevere to get to the high level that they wanted to achieve. So yes, Terry Fox will definitely be chatting about that very soon. Again, terryfox.org/POYBFit to join the team or to sponsor us if you'd prefer. Have a great night, everyone. Stay safe. Take care. Remember, take really good care of yourself. Ramp up that self-care again. Keep it going. And remember, always make yourself the priority you deserve to be by striving to be operationally fit. Stay safe and have a great night.